So guys, this is a review video on trigonometry that you did last year, and this is just a review. Before we start with trigonometry, we really have to understand what is the hypotenuse. That's the first thing. So remember, this is the right triangle, here's the right angle, 90 degrees, and we really have to understand that this is the hypotenuse. And it doesn't matter if they present you the, let's suppose they present you the triangle like that, which first you have to spot the right triangle, the right angle. You have to spot the right angle, and when you have to spot the right angle, remember that the hypotenuse is always what the side that you have in front. So this will be the hypotenuse now. That's really important. And then after defining the hypotenuse that will never change, we still have two sides left. Okay? Now, these two sides can be the opposite or the adjacent, or the adjacent and the opposite. It depends. It depends on how you look at it, okay? So let's suppose that this we're gonna call angle X, okay? Now we're gonna try to understand what's the opposite side. The opposite side is the one that you have across. So it's not any of the ones that are touching the angle. It's the ones you have just in front, okay? So this would be, if we define the angle X as this one, the opposite will be the side that we have in front. So now this will be the opposite, okay? And the adjacent would be the one touching the angle. So this would be the adjacent, okay? Now, if we want to define the sine, okay, the sine would be the sine of X. Sine, it's always opposite over hypotenuse, always. Cosine of X will be adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent of X will always be the opposite over the adjacent. It always works like this. Now, for sine of X, it's opposite. Okay, so it's gonna be this side. Okay, and you know what? Instead of calling them O and A, I'm gonna call them what should I call them? Like let's call them I don't know how to call them. Let's call them like B. No, I don't like B. Let's call them like M and P. Okay, so now it would be opposite, which is M over P. Okay, and this one is going to be adjacent, which is P. Over hypotenuse. I'm sorry, I had a mistake here. Hypotenuse over hypotenuse, opposite over hypotenuse, and then the adjacent, which is P over hypotenuse, always over hypotenuse, and then opposite, it's M over P. That's tangent. Okay, now it's correct. Now, if before calling M and P for X, I said, okay, this is the adjacent. I'm sorry, this is the opposite. I said this is the opposite, this is across the opposite, and this is the adjacent. I call it A. But if we take this angle here, which is, let's suppose, angle Y, the opposite of Y is this one. This is the opposite of Y. And the adjacent of Y would be this one here. The adjacent would be this one here. So as you can see, this side can be opposite or adjacent depending which angle I'm selecting, okay? And that's what I want to make clear. It depends. So the hypotenuse never changes. So if you really want to understand this and it's still confusing, I have linked you below the video. You have a link, okay? And you have this game, okay? And this game is asking you, if you click here, okay, go to hypotenuse, okay? Which one is the hypotenuse? Is it this one? Is it this one? Or is it this one? Well, Mick, what do you think? Hypotenuse is the longest one, right? Yes, it's the longest one. So hypotenuse, where is the right angle? So where is the right angle? Here. And then in front, it's right across, we have the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is this one. So the way it works, this is always the hypotenuse, the right one. So right, this is the hypotenuse. Now go to opposite of better. Which one is better? Better is this one, right? Which one is the opposite of better? The opposite of better would be this side. So we're gonna use the arrow in the middle. Okay, this is the opposite of better. Go to hypotenuse. So again, hypotenuse is this one, right? So I'm gonna click here, hypotenuse. Okay, and then go to opposite of alpha. This is alpha. Which one is the opposite of alpha? The opposite of alpha is this one, right? So I'm gonna click to this one, the black one, right? Let me see if it works. Trying to make it work, but I don't know why it's not working. No, right. Why it's not working? It might be something wrong with the phone. Now it's working. Very good. So this is the opposite of alpha. I didn't see what it said now, but again, this is a game to practice, so you get good at which one is the adjacent of which, and which one is the opposite of which. I think the hypotenuse is easier usually for students to spot. Okay, so once we know this, okay, we're gonna try to do the problems. So let me see. Where do we have the problems? Here we have the problem. Now they're asking you cosine of x. Which one is x here? Okay, so first you spot the angle. Angle x is this one. And remember, if you remember SOHCAHTOA, you're gonna remember SOHCAHTOA. So if you remember SOHCAHTOA, you know that sine, it's opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent, it's opposite over adjacent. So this helps you remember the formulas. So as it asks cosine of an angle, it's here we go, adjacent from that angle over hypotenuse. Which one is the adjacent? Remember, the adjacent is always the side that is touching that angle. Okay, opposite of x, adjacent of x is the one touching. So the one touching is this one, which is 32. So it's 32 over, and then hypotenuse, which is 40. We can simplify this fraction. This would be 32. Half of 30, I'm going to do half and half. Half of 30 is 16. 16, half of 40 is 20. We can still do half. So half of 16 is 8. Half of 20 is 10, right? And then half of 8 is 4. Half of 10 is 5. So here we go. So that's the ratio, right? Tangent. Now this has been switched, right? This angle has been switched. So remember, where do we have the hypotenuse now? Always in front of the right angle. So the hypotenuse is going to be in front. So it's going to be this one. This is going to be the hypotenuse. Tangent of x. We spot the angle x. Now tangent, because of SOHCAHTOA, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So tangent of x is opposite of x over adjacent of x, right? Opposite of x is always the one that it's not touching, so 24 over adjacent, and adjacent is now 18. Again, we can simplify this. and half of 24 is 12, half of 18 is 9. And then we can divide this over 3, and this also over 3, so it's going to be 4 over 3, right? So here we go. That's the way to do it. So you can do this one yourself, and I'm going to make another video for the coming exercises.